So combining the control Z with other operations, we can get new kinds of conditional behavior. And that's an interesting sentence. So we can, let's see what do they mean by conditional behavior. I mean, obviously the controlled notion of a gate is a conditional behavior already. So, if that qubit is on a one, on the state one, then apply that gate. But what do you mean by new kinds of conditional behavior? For example, what if we wanted a conditional X rather than a conditional Z? Yeah, well, you have a control not for that, right? Okay, but maybe this using your expertise. Okay, yeah, because I know there's a control not. The game sort of assumes maybe you don't know that. Z to make an X, you should be able to work it out. Target, turn off the blue boxes using the allowed gates. Turn off the blue boxes using the allowed gates. So what can we do? We have an X. So I guess the exercise is trying to frame you to do and to say, how can I do a controlled X? So this means based on based on what? On qubit 1, then I'm going to turn off qubit 0, but then because qubit 1 doesn't have an X, right? So let's try to apply an X. So where to start? Where to start? So if I'm gonna do a control X, a control Z, if I do a Hadamard on 1, Hadamard on 1, yeah, Hadamard on 1. So basically, we've moved that, and now what if I do a control Z now? What happens? Nothing happens. Control Z. If I do an X on 1 and now I do control Z, why? I mean, I'm just kind of backing. I'm just going backwards by applying the same operations in reverse. So we were here. So when I do an X for the qubit 0, that basically switches that off, which allows me to move that certainty over here. So visually kind of makes sense, but it's like how to build up intuition on top of that afterwards. That's gonna be an interesting challenge. So yeah, basically now I can do I've done an X there, and I can do a control Z, and it's over here. So now I just move that here, and you have that, but I don't have an X. Okay, but now I can switch. So I have a Hadamard and qubit 1, so I can do that. Oh, Hadamard on 1. Yeah, now it's off, and here I have an X. But I don't know if that's what the exercise expected me to do, honestly, because I mean, obviously those things up here. I mean, so the first things were kind of like attempts, but what I've done kind of at the end is sort of an X. So I think those were the meaningful operations, sort of like an X on qubit 0 in that particular case, and then a control Z, and then a Hadamard, and then another X just to turn the other one off, right? But that's part of the challenge. But yeah. So I see where this is kind of going a bit, but going up and down, like going back and forth, with a puzzle and a challenge, and then kind of trying to abstract a lesson out of that, sometimes it's a bit complicated. Let's see, you made an operation that does an X on qubit 1 depending on whether the blue box of qubit 0 is on. Have I? We call this the control X, or the control not. Unlike the CZ, the CX operation is not symmetric. To make it conditional on qubit 1 instead, you'll need to apply Hadamard elsewhere. Target, turn off the blue boxes using the allowed gates. Turn off the blue boxes using the allowed gates. So now I have an x on 1. So basically, I know that the control, because the control z, if I do a control z, what's going to happen if I do control z? So far, nothing. But if I do a Hadamard control z, because also the control z is between 0 and 1. But if I do an Hadamard on 1, and now I do a control z, what's going to happen? Boom. That is now full. And now I do a Hadamard on 1. Now I do control z. No. I didn't know you can restart. So maybe I should stick to what the exercise is trying me to do, but I'm trying to think a bit out of the box there as well. Maybe that's not the right thing to do, but how to turn off the blue boxes using the allowed gates. If I'm taking a look at that, so give me a second. So if I want to turn off this one because that's already off, right? So if I want to turn this one off, I want to move, it means I want to move that certainly somewhere else. That's a way to do it because we don't have an X, right? So, okay, but we have a Z for the qubit one. And the Z basically, what was the Z? So if I do Z, what happened? Is anything changing? I don't see anything changing. I'll restart just in case. So, but if I do basically a it's not symmetric. So before I have done can I go back to that? Those are my attempts. And here's no, I don't know. Let's just stick to this. So if I do an X, if I do an X for the qubit one, that turns it on. If I now do a control Z, nothing happens. Boo. Nothing happens. If I now do an X, now I do a Hadamard on 0. Yay, Hadamard on 0. So because I've done a Hadamard, let me do another one so I can go back to what it was. Hadamard 0. So because that's here. So I moved basically this from this circle here to this from this dimension to this dimension with a Hadamard 0. And now if I do a control Z, which I'm still not crazy familiar with in the context of the puzzles, I'm expecting this to move here. Bam. Good, so now I have that here, so I can basically do a Hadamard again, and that qubit 0 is now off. And now I can easily apply an X to qubit 1, and I'm done. Perfect. Now on to the next chip. Most IBM quantum devices actually use control X as the basic entangling operation instead of control Z. Yeah, that was kind of my feeling. Because with the control X, if you have a Hadamard in the qubit 0 and a control X afterwards between 0 and 1, then you get basically the Bell state where where the two qubits will always agree, which means you have to worry about which way around you are allowed to apply them. This chip is one of those devices. You have a control X that is conditional on the blue box of a qubit 0 and which can apply X to qubit 1. Though it affects both qubits, you'll find it in your list of allowed operations for qubit 1. Target, turn off the blue boxes. So it's a control X. This means that it only affects 1 if this is, yeah, but that's a kind of an easy run. So if I do an X on 0 and now I do a control X, that's going to turn off, and now I do an X on 0 and I'm done. Yeah. Now to the next chip, 25. Like the control Z, there are different ways to interpret the control X. In the last chip, we use the fact that it does an X to qubit 1 conditional to qubit 0, but it can also be interpreted as doing a Z to qubit Z to qubit 0 conditional on the red. Oh, wait a second, conditional on the red box? Is it? So it can also be interpreted as doing a Z to qubit 0 conditional on the red box. Oh, that's a cool way of thinking about this. To reset this chip. This is interpretation you'll need to reset this chip. But since everyone is so obsessed with the other interpretations, you'll still find it in your list of allowed qubits in operation 1. Target turn off the blue boxes using the allowed gates. So let me read that again. So it says that it's like a control X is like doing a Z to a qubit 0 conditional on the red box of a qubit 1. It seems a bit stretched out, but what it's saying is it's like doing a Z if this here is 1. So if the red box here is 1. Wow. So, and I have no X, and I want to turn those things off. So, and I know that if I do a Hadamard and qubit 0, but I don't have a, I don't have a, so this is this. And if I do a Hadamard, no. If I do a Z, let me restart. So if I do a Z on qubit 1, okay, that already has happened. So now I have certainty here. And now I do a control X. Oh, wow. So it's switching the certainty between this and this. So the control X in that case, but it's, it's really difficult to kind of make a generic intuitive statement out of all this because there's so many interpretations going on here that is just messing up with my mind. So if you do a control X now in this case, you're basically, so now that's switched off. But I don't think that's I don't think that's what is supposed to be interpreted. Like, because here it talks about turning. Well, yeah, it's a Z, kind of. It's a Z to Q0. I don't know. If I do a Q, but I don't. Yeah, I want that off because now I can do a Hadamard on 0, and so that's off. And I want to do an H on 1, and I want to do a Z. No, H on 1 and a Z on 1. So now I have this 0 and now an H on 1. I have no idea what that's how it was supposed to be done. But it's the trick is once you get to play with the grid, you kind of, it's easy to just play without reasoning, and that's pretty, that's complicated. So now on the next chip, 26, the control X on this chip is the other way around. It does an X to qubit 0 conditional on the blue box of qubit 1. Unfortunately, 1 that does the qubit is what you need to reset this chip. But don't worry, with a few H operations, you can turn the CX around. Turn off. So I guess the goal here is to teach you can basically flip the control Z effect by applying Hadamard somewhere here and there. So I want to turn both things off, and basically the X is only in 0. So if I do X in 0, then we're done. And then we're done for that. And then if I do now a control X, it's on again. Of course. Right, so I'm going to do an X on 0. Then I'm going to do a Hadamard on 0. Then I'm going to do a Control X. That's going to do nothing. Yeah. No, I'm going to do a Hadamard on 1. And I'm going to do a Control X, which is also not doing anything. So I'm just playing with this at that point. I'm going to turn those things off, correct? Because at that point I know that I can just, so I can do a Hadamard on 0, and there's like that, and then I can do Control X now. So, I'm just shooting at that point. So I think because I wanted to get closer to the level 33, see if they would add, see if I would see sort of the third dimension to this. And so at that point, I'm not really learning anything, I think. If I do a Hadamard's not going to help me. If I do an X, basically I'm doing that next here. Hadamard. Yeah, I think 26. So come on, I can't give up. I really can't give up. I have the impression that I'm not really building up any intuition, any additional intuition on top of that. I mean, there's been some interesting learnings out of this, but I don't really. So if you turn off the blue boxes using the allowed gates, in this case, we have only a control node for 0. So we want to reverse that control node for 0, because we have an X for 0 and a control X for 0. So meaning conditional on 0, conditional on 1, it applies. Conditional on 1 applies to 0, but that's not what we want. We want that conditional on 0 that applies to 1. So so if we do a X, if we do a control X now, nothing's going to happen. If we do an X on 0, 0, and an X, sorry, X can only be applied to 0. So when I do X, this is on or this is off. So I do an X, and now I do a control X. No. Restart. So if I do a if I do an X on 0, I want to use the fact that 0 is 1 to basically apply control X here, but then because then I can apply an X here. So I need to get that. I need to get that. Wait a second. Am I stupid, or if I do control X? Oh no, sorry, I'm getting that wrong. So it's control X and 0. So now I don't have a way to turn that back off. To turn that off. Unless reset. Oh, sorry, restart. So if I do Hadamard's are not going to help me, right? The Hadamard and 0. What the? Oh yeah, sure. Hadamard and 0 has done this. Hadamard on 1 has done that. And if I do a control X, so now I kind of move that. I don't know what I'm doing. So if I move this C, if I do a control X, ooh, now this is off. So now I can do a Hadamard on 1. And now this is off. And now I can do a Hadamard on 0 again. And now I can do an X on 0. So I'm done. But basically, so by doing the Hadamards, first I've moved those certainties to the second dimension for both qubits, then doing a control knot. I will really give a second round to that, I think, after a while, because those different interpretations are extremely confusing.